Let me ask you something. Growing up, who taught you about money? Was it your mama? Your grandma? An uncle who had the good job at the plant? And what did they tell you? Save your money, baby. Don't get in debt. Get a good job. Keep your head down. Put something in that 401k. Yeah, I heard it too. And I believed it. For years, I believed it. But here's what nobody told us. That advice, and the same advice that got passed down from generation to generation inside black families across America, that advice was built for survival, not for wealth. And there is a difference, a massive difference. Surviving and building are two completely different games. And if you're playing a survival game with wealth-building rules, you're going to lose. Every single time. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why the savings-first mindset is not a wealth strategy. It is a poverty maintenance system dressed up in the language of responsibility. And then I'm going to give you the 5 moves, 5 specific real moves, to stop maintaining your poverty and start building something that lasts. Stay with me to the end. Because the fix is in this video, and if you leave early, you're going to miss the most important part. Let's go. Before I go any further, I need to honor something. The save everything mindset didn't come from nowhere. It came from necessity. Think about what our grandparents and great-grandparents lived through. Reconstruction was dismantled. Greenwood, Black Wall Street, was burned to the ground. Jim Crow locked black families out of banks, out of home loans, out of business financing. Redlining made sure that even when black families had money, they couldn't buy property in the neighborhoods that were going to appreciate. So what did our people do? They saved in jars. They kept cash in mattresses. They built credit unions because banks wouldn't serve them. They protected every dollar they earned because every dollar they earned could be taken. That was wisdom. In that context, that was absolute wisdom. But we have to understand something. Strategies that keep you alive in a dangerous environment can kill you in a safe one. Let me say that again. Strategies that keep you alive in a dangerous environment can kill you in a safe one. The racial wealth gap in America is real. Today, for every dollar the average white family holds in wealth, the average black family holds about 15 cents. 15 cents. But here's what nobody is talking about. That gap doesn't close just because black families save more. Research has shown that even when black families match the savings rates of white families, the gap widens. Why? Because saving was never how wealth was built. Not for any group. Not ever. Wealth is built through ownership, through assets, through leverage, through equity that compounds over decades. Our grandparents survived. God bless them. They survived when survival was not guaranteed. But we are standing in a different moment, and this generation has a responsibility that no previous generation had, because this generation has access and opportunity that our ancestors bled for us to have. So the question is not, how do I survive? The question is, how do I build something that lasts 100 years? And those two questions have two very different answers. All right, let's get into the myths, because I need you to understand why this doesn't work, not just take my word for it. Myth number 1, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. Sounds right. Feels right? It's wrong. Here's the math, and I need you to stay with me here because this math changed my life. Inflation, the slow, invisible thief, has been averaging around 3 to 4% per year in the United States. Your savings account, if you're lucky, is paying you 0.5%. Some of you are at a big bank getting 0.01%. Basically nothing. What does that mean in real life? It means if you had $1,000 sitting in a savings account back in the year 2000, that same $1,000 today has the purchasing power of about $550. You didn't earn anything. You lost almost half. The money's still there. The zeros are still there. But the value, the real value, has been quietly stolen. Every single year. Now here's the part that should make you angry. Your bank took that same $1,000 you deposited, and they lent it to somebody else at 7% on a car loan, or 22% on a credit card, or 25% on a personal loan. They used your money to make themselves rich, and they paid you almost nothing. You were the investor. They got the return. I'm going to say something that might be uncomfortable. Most of us were taught that saving money is disciplined, and it is. But discipline applied to the wrong strategy is still a losing strategy. I grew up broke. I didn't have a savings mindset. I had a scarcity mindset. And when I finally started making money, I hoarded it. Because that's what scared people do. We hold cash because cash feels safe. But I had to learn, and this is what changed everything for me, that money sitting still is money dying slowly. Money needs to move into assets, into things that produce more money. That's not gambling. That's how wealth works. Now listen, I'm not saying don't save. You need an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses liquid, absolutely. That's not negotiable. But everything above that emergency fund should be deployed into something that grows, into something that works while you sleep. A dollar saved is not a dollar earned. A dollar invested, now that's a dollar with potential. Myth number 2, stay out of debt. Now this one is the most dangerous myth of all, because there is a version of it that is absolutely true, and a version of it that will keep your family poor for 10 generations. Let me explain. There is bad debt, consumer debt. Credit card debt you ran up buying things that went down in value or disappeared completely. Car notes on vehicles that depreciate the moment you drive off the lot. Buy now, pay later on shoes and clothes and electronics. That debt, stay out of it. Get out of it as fast as you can. That debt is a trap. But there is another kind of debt. It's called leverage. And leverage is how every wealthy family in America, of every background, has built their assets. Every major real estate developer uses borrowed money to buy property. Every successful business owner has used financing to scale. Every Fortune 500 company on earth carries some form of debt on its balance sheet. Because wealthy people understand something that nobody taught us. If an asset earns more than the debt costs, you come out ahead. That's not reckless. That's math. Let me give you a real example. A duplex in your city costs $250,000. You put down 20%, that's $50,000. You borrow the other $200,000. Your mortgage payment is $200 a month. You rent both units for $1,000 each. That's $2,000 a month coming in. You're netting $800 a month on an asset you control. And every year that property is appreciating in value. And you get tax deductions. And your tenants are paying down your loan. That is leverage. That is how wealth gets built. Now, compare that to the family that saved that same $50,000 in a savings account for 15 years because they were staying out of debt. They have $50,000. The other family has an asset worth $300,000 in cash flow. Same discipline. Completely different outcome. The Bible, and I'm going to go here for a moment because this is real, the parable of the talents in Matthew 25 is not about spiritual gifts. It is literally about money. The master gave his servants talents, which were units of currency. And the servant who buried his talent in the ground, who saved it, who protected it, who refused to put it at risk, the master called him wicked and lazy. The servants who multiplied their talents, doubled them, grew them, those were the ones the master praised. God is not honored by buried money. God is honored by multiplication. The rule is simple. If the asset earns more than the debt cost, it's a wealth tool. If not, it's a poverty trap. That's it. That's the whole framework. Myth number 3. Get a good job, save your 401k. Retire at 65. I want you to think about this plan for a second. Really think about it. You spend the best 40 years of your life, your most energetic, most capable, most creative years, working to build someone else's vision. And in exchange, they put a small percentage of your income into an account that you cannot touch without penalty until you are 59 and a half years old. You're going to be wealthy at 67. When your knees hurt and your back is gone and most of the people you love are not here anymore. That is the plan. And I need to be clear. I'm not saying don't contribute to your 401k. If your employer matches, take the match. That is free money. Take it. But I am saying a 401k is a floor. It was never meant to be a ceiling. It was never meant to be a wealth strategy. Here's the bigger problem. Employment, by design, makes someone else rich. When you go to work, you trade your time, your expertise, and your labor. And in return, you get a salary. That salary is, by definition, less than the value you create. Because if you created exactly the value of your salary, your employer would have no profit. And no business operates at zero profit. So there is always a gap between what you produce and what you are paid. That gap is called profit. And the person who captures that profit is the owner, not the employee. The school-to-job pipeline was designed in the industrial age. It was designed to produce compliant workers for factories, good workers, reliable workers, but not owners, not builders, not wealth generators. The wealthiest people in every community, regardless of race, are not the ones with the best jobs. They are the ones who own things, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, equity. A job is seed money. Use it. Save the seed. Plant it in a business. Let it grow. But do not confuse the seed for the harvest. Okay. Now I want to show you what's on the other side of these myths, because I don't just want to tear things down. I want to build something in their place. Here's how wealth actually works. There are 4 levels of value in any economy, and your income is directly tied to which level you operate at. The first level is implementation. This is physical labor. You dig the ditch, you drive the truck, you stock the shelves. The economy needs this work. But it pays the least because anyone can do it. The second level is unification. This is trade skills. You wire the building, you build the website, you do the accounting. Better pay, but still dependent on your time. The third level is communication. This is where things shift. You sell, you teach, you lead, you present. The best communicators, salespeople, coaches, speakers, marketers, make far more money than the best technicians because they multiply other people's effort. The fourth level is imagination. This is the wealth level. You create systems. You build businesses. You own things that produce income whether you show up or not. You make money from ideas, from equity, from assets. Most people spend their whole lives on levels 1 and 2, and they wonder why they can never get ahead. Here's the shift. Poor families trade time for money. Middle-class families trade skills for money. Wealthy families build systems that produce money. The goal is to own the machine, not to be the machine. And this is not new information for black people. Black Wall Street understood this. Greenwood, Oklahoma, in the early 1900s had black hospitals, black banks, black law offices, black grocery stores. It was not wealthy because black people there saved more. It was wealthy because black people there owned more. Dollars circulated inside that community 18 to 20 times before leaving. In the average black community today, a dollar leaves in 6 hours. 18 times versus 6 hours. That is the gap. That is what ownership does that savings never can. The wealth formula is not complicated. Build income. Convert income into assets. Let assets generate cash flow. Use cash flow to buy more assets. Repeat until the assets produce more than you need. That loop, that cycle, is how every generational wealth story gets written. In every culture, in every country, in every era. You just haven't been taught to run it. Until now. All right, let's get to work. 5 moves. These are not theories. These are not inspiration. These are concrete steps that you can begin this week. Move number 1, stop saving everything above your emergency fund. Emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, and keep it liquid. Keep it accessible. That is non-negotiable. But every dollar above that is idle capital. That money is not safe in a savings account. It is slowly dying. Take it out of the savings mentality and put it into the asset mentality. We'll talk about where in the next moves. Move number 2, buy real estate first. Real estate is the single most accessible wealth-building vehicle for black families in America right now. You don't need to be rich to start. You need 3 to 5% down on an FHA loan for a primary residence. Start with a duplex. Live in one unit. Rent the other. Your tenant pays most or all of your mortgage. You're building equity every month. You get depreciation deductions on your taxes, and when property values rise, and historically they do, you're positioned. House hacking, it's not glamorous. It's not a flex, but it is generational wealth. Move number 3, build a business, even part-time. You do not need to quit your job today, but you do need to start treating your skills like assets, not just services. Are you good at something? Teaching, organizing, cooking, designing, fixing, speaking? That skill can become a business, a sole proprietorship, an LLC, a corporation. Why does this matter beyond income? Because a business gives you access to tax deductions that employees will never see. You can write off your vehicle, your home office, your phone, your education, your travel. The tax code in America was written by business owners for business owners. The employee gets almost nothing. Start the business, even if it makes $500 a month to start. Because $500 a month in business income, treated correctly, is worth more than $2,500 in employee income after taxes. Move number 4, learn to sell. I am going to say something that might sound simple, but it is the most important thing I can tell you about building wealth. The highest paid skill in the world is the ability to communicate in a way that motivates people to take action. Selling. I don't mean manipulation. I mean the ability to articulate value. The ability to present an idea, a product, a service, and have someone say yes. That skill is worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars over a lifetime. If you can sell, you can always make money. Period. Learn to sell your ideas in a meeting. Learn to sell your product online. Learn to sell your service to the neighborhood. Learn to negotiate your salary. Learn to pitch an investor. Everything in business ultimately comes down to persuasion. Master it. Move number 5, convert consumption into assets. Look at your spending, not to shame yourself, to audit yourself. What are you spending money on that goes down in value? The luxury car that loses 20% the year you buy it. The jewelry collection that sits in a drawer. The designer bags that depreciate. The streaming services you don't watch. Now look at what you could be putting that same money into that goes UP in value. Index funds that track the S&P 500. A rental property. Business equity. Intellectual property. A course that builds a skill that generates income. This is not about deprivation. This is about direction. You can still enjoy your life, but enjoy it from a position of building, not from a position of consumption. Every dollar you redirect from depreciation to appreciation compounds over time. That compounding is the engine of generational wealth. I want to close with something that I need you to feel, not just hear, feel. This isn't about you becoming rich. I know that sounds strange coming from a wealth video, but stay with me. Your grandparents survived things you will never understand. They survived because they had to, and they did whatever it took to make sure you had a shot that they never had. Now you're here. You have that shot. And the question this generation has to answer, the question that no previous generation has had the opportunity to answer, is this. Are we going to keep resetting, or are we going to stack? Jewish families have been stacking wealth for generations, not because they're smarter, because they build structures, family trusts, intergenerational capital, institutions that don't die when one person dies. Asian immigrant families do the same thing. Pooled capital. Family businesses passed from parent to child to grandchild, multi-generational wealth by design. We can do this. We have done this before. We built Black Wall Street, we built black banks, we built HBCUs, and then it was torn down, deliberately. But it was also rebuilt and rebuilt again. The question now is not whether we can. We know we can. The question is whether we will choose to play the long game. The mindset shift I'm asking you to make is this. Stop thinking I'm trying to make it. Start thinking I'm building something my grandchildren will manage. That's a different level of urgency, a different level of intention, a different level of sacrifice. The Bible says the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. I believe that, but I also believe that you have to be ready to receive it. You have to be positioned. God's covenant with Abraham was not about Abraham alone. It was generational. It ran through Isaac, through Jacob, through a nation. Real wealth is generational. Real wealth outlives the builder. Your savings account will not outlive you. Your business might. Your real estate can. Your equity should. Don't let your family's wealth die with you. Build something that lasts. All right, before you close this video, I need you to do one thing. Just one. Go look at your savings account. Right now, after this video, go look at it. How much is in there above your emergency fund? Above 3 to 6 months of expenses? Whatever that number is, that is your investment seed. That is the capital that should be working for you right now. And it's not yet. Pick one of the 5 moves. Just one. House hack. Start the business. Learn to sell. Redirect the consumption dollars. Pick one and start this week. Not next month. Not after the new year. This week, because the gap between knowing and doing is where dreams go to die. I have more resources for you linked below. If you're serious about building real multi-generational wealth, start with the resources in the description. We've built entire systems around this. And subscribe to Before You Die. Because next week, I'm going to show you the exact business structure that lets you legally pay your family members and cut your tax bill in half. You do not want to miss that. Hit the bell so you don't miss it. And drop a comment right now. What is the number one money myth you were raised with? Let's break it together in the comments. I love y'all. Build something. See you next week.